And we are live. Hello, hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Give me a second while I I'm going to try and set this up on Twitter as well. Oh, is it like this? Oh, here. Okay, so Twitter's on now. Welcome, welcome everyone. Welcome to the show. So let's get started. I'm going to talk about Gaza today, and I'm also going to talk a bit about China as well. So without further ado, let's make a start. I'm just going to put a slide on the screen. Here you go. Okay, so let's start talking about Gaza, and I'll go through some of my Twitter feeds, some of the biggest stories I've found on Twitter over the past few days, and I'm going to go through that with you guys. So this is the first one. I thought this was quite a good interview. I'll let you listen to it. I thought it was pretty thought-provoking. This is from Norman Finkelstein.
A moral idiot to think at this point that Israel's massacre in Gaza is the application of international humanitarian law. Number one, on October 8th, there were three statements made by senior officials. Statement number one by Defense Minister Gallon: we're not letting in any water, fuel, food, or electricity. Full stop. Statement number two by Chaim Herzog, the president of Israel: we don't distinguish between civilians and combatants in Gaza. They're all Hamas. Statement number three by Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu: this is going to be a very long war, much longer than ever before. The longest recent war, I won't go back to 1982, the longest recent war, massacre, was in July, August 2014. It lasted 51 days. So if you add those three statements up, what you have is no food, no water, no electricity, and no fuel for 51 plus days to the entire population of Gaza. Now, that was stated October 8th. That is a murder plan. That is a genocide plan. And if you don't want to hear the word genocide, well, guess what? Too bad, because that's what it is. It's a genocidal plan. And ever since that day, everything Israel has done has been in accordance with that genocidal plan. Israel has systematically targeted hospitals, systematically targeted ambulances, has systematically leveled the entire infrastructure of Gaza. And you still can't make up your mind whether or not what's happening in Gaza is in accordance with international humanitarian law. You're a moron. You are a moron.
So you got to agree with Norman Finkelstein there. Sorry, I can't get his surname right. Finkelstein sounds like Frankenstein. So, sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but I do agree with him. 100%. This is a genocide. What Israel is doing right now is targeting hospitals, schools, civilian structures, infrastructure, and they've stopped electricity. They've stopped. Fucking hell. Sorry, guys, my mobile just died, and I was doing my live streaming on Twitter as well. I'll put the charger on. So what's happening right now? It's absolute genocide. They've bombed hospitals, schools, infrastructure. They've also stopped the electricity going into the hospitals, And there's a story today that there's a hospital in Gaza which has got zero electricity, and it's all dark, and all the incubators are switched off, so all the babies are going to die. It's a very, very sad moment in history where we're watching all this genocide take place in front of us. I'm going to a London march tomorrow. There's going to be hopefully about 1 million people, and it's a kind of, I know it's a kind of like a waste, to be honest, to go there, waste of time, because the government's not going to do anything. You really think Sunak's going to take notice? You really think Starm or anyone else is going to take notice? I don't think so. Because end of the day, our foreign policy is governed by the US. So there was all talk about Brexit. There was all talk about Brexit, saying, "Oh, we need to take back control. We need to have sovereignty away from the EU." And what's happened is, yeah, they've left the EU, but they haven't really escaped from their sovereignty, because their foreign policy is completely in line with the US. And you can tell because everything that the US does, we normally follow. So, for example, if the US decides to boycott China on the Olympic Games, UK follows suit very soon. If US decides to boycott Huawei, UK follows very soon. If you if US suddenly starts talking to China, like Biden meets, for example, Biden meets President Xi and stuff like that, then UK will want to send his foreign secretary to China. Do you see the point when the US talks about genocide in China, in Xinjiang? The UK will do the same. So can you see the point? Everything that the US does is not just the political side of things; it's also the financial side of things as well. If the US decides to increase its interest rates, UK follows very soon. If the United States reduces it, we reduce it as well. So our foreign policies, everything is basically outsourced to the US, and that's the problem. So yeah, we've left the EU, we've left, because of Brexit, but it doesn't mean we are individual. We are still under the thumb of the US. And why? What is the point? Because end of the day, what do we get out of it? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Do we get a free trade deal from the US? No, of course not. We're just a bunch of pansies. So what's the way it works is, the US, and the establishment, military industrial complex, they pay kind of like these guys. I'm talking about Rishi Sunak, Starmer, the leader of the opposition party. They pay these guys reasonable amount of money. They promise them power, promise them lots of riches. For example, you just have to look at Tony Blair, for example. He went along with the neocons with the Iraq war, and look at him now. He's an absolute billionaire. His son's a millionaire, billionaire. This guy's living like a king. He's more richer than the king. And just making sure you guys can hear me, by the way. Yeah, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. And don't forget to like if you like it. Also helps with the algorithm as well, and things like that. So appreciate it. So you can see with Tony Blair's become very, very rich out of the Iraq war. And now Boris tried to do the same, as Rishi Sunak is doing it, and Mr. Starmer is doing it. And one powerful lobby that's very powerful is the Israeli lobby. And you can see the Israeli lobby is very strong in the UK. This is why the UK guys are very scared of the Israeli lobby. They kind of follow their every step. And they pay the Israeli lobby do pay a lot of money to these politicians, these crooked politicians we have as leaders. So this is why they are completely crooked, and they will follow the US policy, the Israeli policy. And the Israeli lobby is also very, very strong in the US as well. So the US follows the Israeli lobby very, very, very strongly. and it's a kind of lobby that you cannot really escape from. So they are very strong. They also control the media, and you can see all the media around the world, the Western world, is pretty much the same. UK media, BBC, and all the other media, it basically follows the line, toes the line basically, and toes the line the same as the US media and German media, French media, you name it. They all kind of toe the line. They're all controlled by the establishment. So when you basically have all the politicians under your thumb, you have the media under your thumb, and then you also have social media being controlled as well. Like Mark Zuckerberg is a Jew, so obviously he's going to be very pro-Jewish with the stuff that comes out in his social media, and the only problem that they have is Twitter, because Elon Musk has taken over Twitter. That's the only control they do not have. But it's changing. I believe things are changing. I think the feds have probably got to Elon, threatening him somehow, and uh, and I've noticed a lot of accounts are getting demonetized in Twitter recently. So you never know. They eventually get to you, these feds. And if they don't get to you, for example, like Huawei, if they can't get to you, they will find ways to destroy you. And this is why they basically kicked out Huawei and basically doing their best to try and destroy Huawei, but it's not working, obviously. So I'm gonna kind of go to the next story. I'm gonna go through these stories one by one. Give me a second, guys. My mobile died while I was talking, and I was doing the live stream on Twitter. So I'm just gonna restart the live stream again. Give me a second. Okay, we are live on Twitter as well. Okay, excellent, guys. So this clip is basically a clip of the hospital being bombed by the Israelis. And the reason I'm showing you this is because the Israelis came out with a statement saying it wasn't them, it was basically the Hamas shooting its own hospitals. But you cannot deny this clip, because this is a reporter from Al Jazeera, and during this report he was saying that he could hear planes flying over him, and they might be dropping bombs, and suddenly they did drop bombs, and he's basically saying these planes are basically dropping bombs on the hospital. So these Israelis can deny all they want, but the proof is there. And at the end of the day, these Israelis, right, they've basically learned a lot of propaganda tricks from Ukraine, and you've seen all these ridiculous propaganda stories coming out of Ukraine in the beginning of the war. So Israeli is basically doing the same thing. They're trying to basically do as much propaganda as they can. They're the country that's dropping bombs on Palestine. There's no ifs or buts. They're the ones that are, you know, genociding the Palestinians. So it can only be them, right? The Palestinians are not going to go around killing themselves, right? This is only going to be they are just there defending themselves from all these bombings from Israel. And the Israelis like, oh, if they bomb a hospital, it wasn't us, it wasn't us, it was Hamas. Or if they bomb a school, oh, there was a Hamas tunnel underneath, so we bombed the school. If they bomb a building with like women and children, oh, we saw one Hamas guy entering, so we decided to destroy the whole building. That's how it works. Um, Propaganda it's used to the maximum, and it's actually making people more angry, the fact that they bomb people and kill people, then lie about it and trying to make an excuse when it's clearly they're trying to genocide the people. It's clear genocide right in front of our eyes. So this is a funny clip I saw. I'm not gonna waste my time with that. So there's story about Janet Yellen. So Janet Yellen made basically um, made a kind of statement. She's made a statement because I don't know if you guys know much about the world on finance, but the US basically held some bond auction today, and it went really badly. Nobody bought their bonds, or some countries bought their bonds, but they expected China to buy it, but China didn't buy any of these bond auctions. So things went very, very badly, and the stock market tumbled a lot today. It crashed. I think the S&P crashed by around 8% or something like that. So things are not looking good on the U.S. Economic side of things, and yes, I just wanted to kind of hang on a second. I'm just yeah. So I just want to kind of go through. There's one person on Twitter. Hello, hello. I just wanted to say hello. But I'm kind of going through some of my Twitter feeds, and if you want to talk, we can speak later. So the next story is this is the hospital. You can see it's completely dark. There's no electricity or power, and there's babies with incubators in there, and they could probably die. So it's really sad. This is, I grew up watching the Iraq War, right? And Afghanistan war. It was never as bad as this, never. And people had mobile phones then. At least, you know, you, you know, you. I mean, I know civilians were being killed during Iraq and Afghanistan, but it was never as bad as this. This is like pure genocide. This is like Israel is trying to wipe out all of the Palestinians, all of them, from the face of the earth. And back then, yeah, Americans were killing civilians, but you would still think that they're not going to kill all the Iraqis or all the Afghans. They would have some decency. But here, it's like the Israelis are just trying to kill everyone, women, babies. They don't care. They're just trying to wipe out the whole population. That's what's happening in front of our eyes. Oh, this is a nice picture of China. I thought it looks amazing. This is basically water flying, going through the bridges. Looks amazing. So this is Israel throwing phosphorus bombs, and phosphorus bombs are basically illegal, and these bombs basically burn your skin, and you can't breathe. And I believe internationally these are supposed to be legal, and they are basically throwing these bombs in civilian locations, and it's just absolute evil, and it's crazy. If Russia did anything like this, you know, they're called they would be called genocide. The whole world would be up in arms. But if Israel does it, the West ignores it, the media ignores it, and politicians ignore it. Like, oh, don't worry, Israel can do whatever it wants, but other countries can't. And this is what you call a rules-based order. It's basically rules of the West. So this is genocide as well. As you can see, all these people are traveling um, because they've got no home, they've got no belonging, so they're traveling south. So they're traveling south because that's what Israel has told them to do. But these people, they're traveling south, and you can see the weather looks very hot. They're probably going to be walking like for days even, and some of them are women with kids, and no food and water as well. And the worst thing is they are still being bombed by Israel. Israel is still bombing them. There's some clips of these people going south who are still being bombed along the way by Israelis. Absolute evil, guys. Absolute evil. Because this is a kind of genocide as well. When you've been, when you as a kind of your people basically displaced from their homes and you got nowhere to go, and it's kind of genocide. You become refugees. You got no home. It's crazy. So there's a story here about Estonia. Estonia starting being a bit naughty towards China. And I say a bit naughty because Estonia says there was a Chinese ship near Nord Stream 2, and they're basically trying to blame China for the Nord Stream 2 explosion. And I'm saying to them, good luck to that. Nobody's going to believe that shit. But Estonia's been a bit naughty as well. They said that they're going to open a Taiwanese office, same as Lithuania, because Lithuania and Estonia are neighbors and they're very close friends. So they're thinking of opening up some sort of joint, um, yeah, some sort of joint thing where they both these countries having the Taiwanese office in there. And I just think it's going to be bad news for Estonia because you just have to look at Lithuania's economy. It's garbage, absolute garbage. I mean, Lithuania, used to sell products in China, and a lot of German tires had Lithuanian products in it. And these German tires are basically banned in China because Lithuania had parts in it. So the German tire company basically cancelled the contract with the Lithuanian company, and now they're selling those tires to China again. And this just means that anything that goes into China, and if you have a Taiwanese office in your country, you can't trade with China, and that's just going to be bad news because Lithuania and Estonia are right next to Russia, so they can't trade with Russia. Yeah, they can trade with Europe, but you know, end of the day, if Europe wants to trade with China and your products are in those products that Europe sells to China, then those products are going to be banned. So this is why Lithuania's economy is absolutely crashing. They're asking for an IMF loan, and things are looking very good. But it looks like Estonia wants to head on the same direction because these leaders are absolutely stupid. These Baltic country leaders. I would say all European leaders are pretty stupid at the moment, including, obviously led by Ursula. Um, when I say Europeans, I'm also including Britain as well in that, because we're still Europeans, even though we're not part of the EU. But yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame how these European leaders have been bought, except Orban probably. I think Orban's are probably only one with sense, and also the Serbian leader is probably the only one with good sense. Everyone else has been bought. So let's move on. So India has had a meeting with the United States. You can see Blinken and Mr. Austin there at the background. So they basically came up with some sort of security. Um, they came up with some sort of security deal, and they want India to basically go to the South China Sea and patrol there. And they also made a joint statement, and the joint statement was basically supporting Israel. They didn't say anything about Palestine. They didn't say anything about the genocide that's going there. So you can tell basically India has gone towards the Israeli side, and they're becoming more and more friendly towards the US. I just want to say that India's basically digging its own grave because India's got very, very short memory. Because at the time, long time ago, when India had a war with Pakistan, there was a US, you know, there was there was a US aircraft carrier which was ready to go to war with India at the time. And if it wasn't for Soviets coming to the rescue for India, because Soviets sent some nuclear subs along the sea, and they said if the US gets involved, then these subs will sink that aircraft carrier. So this is why India has always been friendly towards Russia and Soviets because they came to their rescue. But but why are they friendly towards the US? Just makes no sense. Because it's the US and the Five Eyes, Britain, and the Europeans, but mainly Britain, who actually occupied India for 200 years. And these guys are occupiers of India. They stole trillions worth of money. M- Millions and millions of people died because of famine. And they died because of famine because Britain stole all the agriculture and food and grain away from India. And they basically had to feed the army because at the time UK was like a superpower a long time ago. They were colonized half the world. They colonized India, they colonized most of Africa. Obviously, they took Hong Kong from China. So they colonized a lot of countries around the world, Britain did. And they used Indian troops to basically fight these wars. So a lot of Indians died. And they also stole a lot of these grains and wheat and food and for their armies. And which means that there wasn't enough for the local Indian population. So many died through famine and stuff. The Indians have very short memories. Now they're basically colluding with the colonizers. They're obviously colluding with Israel. Israel is colonizing Palestine. So I just don't understand India's point of view. And I understand that they are a Hindu country and they don't like Muslims, and this is probably why they're supporting Israel over Palestine. But end of the day, this goes far beyond religion. Israel is not genociding the Palestinians because they're Muslims. They're genociding them because they want the land. And this is what they're doing. They've been taking land away from Palestinians over, slowly and slowly. It's got nothing to do with religion. And India going, basically shaking hands with the devil. It's not going to be very good for them in the long term. And the Arab countries are looking at this, and Arab countries will get their revenge on India one day. I think pretty soon the Arab countries will stop selling oil to India, or they'll sell it at a very high price. And yeah, India's got some major, major issues going to be coming to them very soon from the Arab countries, and it's not going to look good. Already, a lot of Arabs countries which had investments in India are actually moving out of India. So I think 3 or 4 Arab Saudi Arabian companies have already moved out of India. And over the next few weeks and few months, you will see more and more Arabs basically cutting ties with India slowly. They're not going to admit it, but they're going to do this slowly. There's a story about 100,000 Indians going into Israel to do the jobs the Palestinians used to do. So because the Palestinians were colonized, Israel used to basically hire these Palestinians, and they used to make them work for they used to make them work crappy jobs. For example, you know, cleaning the streets and sewage treatments and all the crappy jobs that nobody wants to do. They used to get the Palestinians to do it. But because they are now genociding them, they basically asked India for 100,000 Indians to go and do these jobs that the Israelis don't want to do. So 100,000 Indians are going to Israel and they're going to do all these dirty jobs that Israelis don't want to do. And I saw a lot of Twitter stuff from Indians as well. Apparently, a lot of them are going there to meet an Israeli girl to marry her and stuff. So good luck to that. Good luck to gain a job where you're cleaning the streets and trying to chat up with an Israeli girl at the same time. So yeah, if you can do that, then good luck to you. Anyway, let's go to the next story. Oh, sorry guys, I just want to make sure you guys can hear me. Oh, we got 77 views. Don't forget to like and share. Thanks for everyone. Thanks everyone for joining. I really appreciate it. Oh, thanks CA. Thanks for the nice tip. Okay, so I'm going to carry on with the stories. So there's a story the Israelis are using Palestinian kids as human shields. And you can see here, they got this Palestinian kid tied to an army truck. And they're driving into Gaza and they're putting these kids and people in front of the vans and army trucks because to avoid Palestinians shooting them with rocket launchers and things like that. So they're using these kids as basically human shields, which is completely illegal in international law. But the Israelis can do whatever they want, right? I mean, these guys are getting away with using chemical weapons and, you know, killing women and children. They're pretty much getting away with whatever they want. So one little incident with human shield is not going to matter to them. And it's not just one incident, guys. They're doing it a lot. There are like lots of videos out as well, which I'm going to probably show you later. But yeah, it's crazy how, they're getting away with that. And the UN is completely silent in this. Absolutely silent. I mean, I know the United States has veto power, but there must be something that needs to be done if there's a real genocide going on. Because the only reason the UN came into power, was because of the genocide that happened against the Jews, where the Nazis were basically killing off the Jews. And this is why the UN came into power, and they promised never again. This will never ever happen again in the human history, and it's happening now in front of their very eyes. And they just can't do anything. They're just like a debating society, absolutely useless. I think what the UN should do is get together and get rid of the UN. I mean, excuse me, get rid of the US veto vote, um, or overrule it or something. When there's a genocide going on, overrule any veto votes, basically, or something like that. There needs to be something like that, because right now the US is just vetoing everything, and nobody can do anything. So what is the point of having the UN if there's a genocide going on and you can't do anything about it? I think China and Russia should just exit the UN and form their own UN, with the global South countries. I think that's probably the best solution. Whether that's part of BRICS or SCO, I think they should form their own UN and their own military, joint military, NATO style force, with Russia, with China, with many other, like all the Muslim countries in there, all the African countries in there, maybe even Turkey in there, Serbia in there, maybe Central Asian countries. I mean, that in itself is a massive force, and I think that's what's needed around the world to stop these kind of genocides going on. Because right now, if you're a friend of the West, you can commit genocide, no issues. You'll be protected from the UN. You'll be protected from the press. There is no issues for you to commit, genocide. But if you're an enemy of the US, or if you don't follow its interests, then you will be absolutely vilified, crucified, and bombed and killed, probably. So this is what's been happening recently in the recent history, and it's going to carry on happening until there is an alternative system in place. So I've showed you this hospital, which was dark. I don't want to see his face. So I want to kind of talk about this story. A Chinese dispute with the Philippines is a test of America. So, so I thought this was a quite an interesting article here. It says China yearns to expose its rival as an unreliable ally. So as you know, Philippines and the US has got a defense treaty, defense treaty, and the US has got about 7 or 8 military bases in Philippines. A couple of them are new, facing Taiwan, and one of them or two of them are facing South China Sea. And they have a joint defense force that if anyone attacks Philippines, then US will get involved. But however, there's been a lot of clashes between Philippines and China. So it just goes to show whether US will be able to keep its word and, join in to help Philippines in case there's any action. I just don't think it will, because look at the US. It's absolutely got its hands full with Ukraine and now with Israel. Any war with China, this is what's going to happen. Any sort of war with China, any sort of US action with China, the first thing China's going to do is take over Taiwan, because they have to. Because any war with USA, the USA is going to get there first, right? They're going to use Taiwan as a base, an unsinkable aircraft carrier. And this is what the US has done during the Korean War and also the Vietnam War. They used Taiwan as an aircraft carrier, and they were launching attacks into Vietnam and launching attacks into Korea from Taiwan. So China cannot allow that to happen. So China will have to take over Taiwan at this point, and so they'll be forced to reunify, and there will be a regional war. Maybe Japan will get involved, maybe Korea will get involved, maybe Australia will get involved. Who knows? We're talking about World War III here, and Russia's not going to sit back and take notice. You know, Russia's looking for revenge after the West, everything that the West has done to Russia over the past 2 years, giving weapons to Ukraine and stuff. So Russia's going to want to get in the action and help China in some capacity, and there is going to be a massive world war. So the US is not going to risk that for little Philippines. I mean, this joint defense treaty is just for show, just to show little Philippines. Oh, don't worry, we'll help you whenever there's a war, or we'll have, we've got a joint defense treaty. But they forgot to read the small print. The small print is, we'll help you in the event of a war if it serves our interest. Joining a war with China does not serve America's interests. Far from it. They do not want a war with China. Trust me. So, so if there's a small country attacking Philippines, say for example, say Fiji decides to attack Philippines, yeah, America's going to go to Fiji, blow it up, drop all sorts of bombs in Fiji, because that's what they do. They attack, weak countries, small countries. But the likelihood of Fiji attacking Philippines is 0%. And so definitely not going to happen. So this article basically says that China's trying to expose this defense treaty as fake, and they're trying to expose USA as an unreliable ally. And I thought this was quite a good article. Hey guys, I'm back in the chat. Just want to see how you guys are doing. 97, yeah, it's not bad. It's quite late today because obviously I was quite busy. So yeah, not bad. Don't forget to like. Obviously, it will kind of send out to more people and stuff. And let's continue. Let's continue with the news. Okay, so let's read some more. So you can see here, this is a female refugee, and she's carrying her kids. She doesn't even have the wheels to go with these buggies. You can see she's just dragging her kids, and you don't know how long this is going to take, whether it's half a day or a full day. And she's obviously has two bags. You can see she's got two bags, and that's all she's carrying: two babies and two bags. And I don't know about you, but when you're a mother and you have two kids, you need more than two bags, right? If you're living at home and your home has been destroyed, you need a lot of nappies, clothes, food, milk, a lot of things that babies need. And she's leaving a house with just two bags and two kids. She obviously doesn't have a husband, otherwise her husband would have helped her. He's probably been killed or something. Or So yeah, it's a bit sad, guys. Really sad that this kind of stuff is happening in front of our eyes. So this is a quite funny story. Britain has completed training of 30,000 Ukrainian troops ahead of schedule, 7 weeks earlier than planned. So 30,000 Ukrainian soldiers should have finished training in 7 weeks. So Britain has basically stopped the training and sending them straight back to the front line in Ukraine. And they're doing this because they know the war is almost over in Ukraine. 7 weeks, there might not be a Ukraine left. So they know that Ukraine needs troops, and they know that Ukraine's close to collapsing, because obviously the US has stopped giving Ukraine any money, and it's just a matter of time before Ukraine completely collapses. So this is why UK has stopped the training for these troops, and they're basically saying, yeah, they're ready. These guys are ready. Send them to the front lines. And obviously, they're not ready. If you haven't even done full 7 weeks of training, and they're already going to send them in the front line. So these guys are obviously been sent for suicide. But let's see how many of these Ukrainian troops actually end up in Ukraine. I would probably like estimate that most of these Ukrainian soldiers will probably go AWOL at some point, because it's easy to go AWOL when you're in UK. You can just go AWOL and just disappear and pretend to be a Ukrainian refugee that turned up. And so it's much easier to go AWOL in UK than go AWOL in Ukraine, because if you go AWOL in Ukraine, you get shot and you get killed, and it's really difficult to escape Ukraine. But in UK, you can just stay here as a refugee. And yeah, so bad news for these guys, I guess. So there's a story here how China is going to open up the Wakan Corridor. Wakan Corridor is this piece of land that joins China to Afghanistan. And at the moment, this land is just full of mountains and terrain, rough terrain. And they want to link up a rail route going from China directly to Iran. So it has to go through Afghanistan. And they're thinking of going through this Wakan Corridor. So the problem with this Wakan Corridor is when China had issues with the East Turkestan terrorists, they used to come through the Wakan Corridor, and a lot of them are hiding in Tajikistan and Pakistan and Afghanistan. And China's been afraid to develop this piece of land, because if they do, if they build a railway track, that means these terrorists can walk along this railway track and get into China somehow. And so that's a problem, obviously. So this is why China hasn't developed this piece of land, because they're afraid of all these terrorists. Because right now the mountain terrain and it's pretty rough part of land. It's really difficult to go through Afghanistan to China by feet. It's extremely difficult. Plus, China is monitoring this land with drones and things like that. So it's extremely difficult to hide if you're a terrorist. You're trying to get through. But if there's railway tracks in there, it's much more easier for these terrorists to maybe grab onto a train or go along the railway tracks or something. It just gives them a road to get to China. So I'm not sure. Yeah, I think China will have to somehow increase their security if they do that. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But in the long term, if there isn't any trouble, obviously it's good for China, it's good for Iran, it's good for Afghanistan in the long term. But we'll see. Only time will tell if it's a good decision or not. So you have a video here of Israelis celebrating in a mosque, and it's not a problem celebrating in a mosque, but this mosque is basically used to be owned by Palestinians, and the Israelis have taken over, and they're just partying inside the mosque, which I think was a bit evil. So let's go to this one. Oh, this is a good one. So let me put the sound up for this.
I was struck by what you said a moment ago, that there is, in your view, no humanitarian crisis in Gaza. That's your view, right?
Yes.
And how does that view match with the images that we are seeing coming out of the hospitals, coming out of the supermarkets? I mean, there's no food in the supermarkets. There is a shortage of medical supplies in the hospitals. I mean, put aside all of what you say about Hamas, the humanitarian situation on the ground, from what we have seen from our cameras inside, there is no question a humanitarian crisis in there.
Like I've said, and I will say it again, we are in wartime. Of course, that there are a lot of humanitarian challenges. Of course. Not only in Gaza, also in Israel.
Okay, I've heard enough of this BS. So in the beginning, this guy was saying that there's no humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and the reporter I don't know where he's from. I think he's from CNN or something. No, he's not from CNN. Sorry, he's from Sky. Yeah, Sky News. And so he's saying that obviously there is a humanitarian crisis because there's no food, there's no water, people are traveling south, and this guy is saying, oh, we don't have, we have this problem also in Israel. We have, but in Israel people are partying, people are not being bombed, people have food, people have water. So how dare he say compare what's happening in Israel to compare to what's happening in Palestine? Just doesn't make any sense. Every time I hear like a guy from the IDF talking, he's just talking out of his bum. To be honest, it's just yeah, it's just like, I mean, you can see there's a bottle of water next to him while he's doing the press conference, and he can afford this kind of luxury where he can drink water whenever he wants, right? But these Palestinians walking with no home, no shelter, walking for miles to get to somewhere safe. They got no water, no food, and they're walking for miles with dragging babies. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. So Owen Jones says those who oppose war crimes and the mass slaughter of children are being demonized as hateful extremists. The world has turned on its head, which is true. Like I've seen on Twitter, when you try and speak out against the genocide that's going on, or you try and speak out against the mass crimes against humanity, then you have all these people coming out and try to attack you, calling you an anti-Semite, or basically they're weaponizing the word anti-Semite. They're also weaponizing the word Hamas. They call you a Hamas sympathizer, or they call you a terrorist. And when there's marches in London, for example, pro-Palestinian marches in London, they call it a pro-Hamas march. And this is the same in all the papers. All the British papers, they're all saying a pro-Hamas march. When there's a million people marching, there's millions of people marching all around the world. But this Saturday, I think there's a million people expected to come to this march. So not all of them are terrorists, I can tell you that, because it's not only Muslims are coming, but also Christians and Jews even. There's a lot of Jews that come to these marches. Blacks, whites, Chinese, Asian, well, every single race from all over the world, they all come to these marches. Because I was there a few weeks ago, and I saw people from all different races, yeah, all different religions coming to these pro-Palestinian marches. Because you don't have to be a terrorist to support. When you see genocide going on and you just want to ceasefire, you want to end this war, it doesn't make you a terrorist, or it doesn't make you a terrorist sympathizer. You're basically a human. You're just trying to stop women and kids being killed. So the Jews and Israelis are basically using anti-Semitism and calling people Hamas sympathizers and stuff, just to kind of stop people from going to these protests and stop people from posting these posts and stuff. But it's not working end of the day, because the whole world can see the genocide going on, and people are not stupid. And this kind of stuff has happened before. They use propaganda to push the war, and they've done it in Iraq, they've done it in Libya. Because I remember in Iraq war, they were saying that was it Iraq or Libya, or I can't remember now, but they said that they were taking babies out of incubators, and these babies were dying. Well, guess what? That story was fake. And guess what? Babies in incubators are being killed in Palestine right now. These hospitals have got no power, so these incubators cannot run. So these new babies, which have just been born over the past few days, they are basically dying in these incubators with no power. So people are not stupid end of the day. People who have got a brain and have got common sense will know what's going on around the world, and you cannot really change it with propaganda or these ridiculous stories. Anyway, let's move on, guys. Let's move on. So there was CIIE conference in Shanghai, and companies signed $78 billion worth of deals in China. And this guy says that's China for you. No drama, no chaos, no wars, just business. And it's true. While the Western world is basically focusing on war, they're focusing on Ukraine, they're focusing on Israel. China is there going about its business and making deals with companies and making money. And yeah, so that's the completely difference between China and what's going on in the West. The West is just pure chaos. As a business, it's absolute chaos if you're going to be opening up business in America or the West. Utter chaos. Every single year there's chaos. Last couple of years it was Ukraine, and there was no energy. Now it's Israel, and Ukraine's going to be forgotten about. They already said they're not going to have any more money for Ukraine. They promised they would stand with Ukraine to the end. They promised to give unlimited funds to Ukraine. Do you remember that? They promised that they will stand with Ukraine until it won. But now, all of a sudden, they're going to dump Ukraine. You've heard it all before. They said the same thing for Afghanistan. They said the same thing to Ukraine. And these poor people in Ukraine, these soldiers and these poor people, these poor lost souls, they just got themselves killed for a neocon project used as a proxy to attack Russia. They've just been killed for a leader who's an absolute joke. He's a comedian. He's a wokeist. He doesn't even speak Ukrainian. He speaks Russian. And this fool has got properties all over the world. His wife is buying £1 million worth of jewelry. So obviously they're making a lot of money out of this. And these poor Ukrainian souls just killing themselves for him and for the neocons. And why? Why are Ukrainians not clever enough to know that they're being used, that they're being killed for this neocon project? Why aren't they standing up and rising up against Ukraine and marching to Kiev and demand a change of leader and overthrow Zelensky? Why don't they do that? That would be the best course for Ukrainians to survive. But no, these Ukrainians love to go on the front line and kill themselves, all in the name of Biden and Zelensky. Well, bravo, very brave of you. Or is it brave or is it stupid? I would probably say stupid, to be honest. Anyway, let's move on. So Russia-China trade is coming up to 200 billion. So this is going to rise, obviously, next few years because Russia and China are building more trade links between the two countries. There's going to be more rail links and bridges. There's going to be they've also opened up Vladivostok port to China as well. So there's obviously going to be a lot more trade going via Vladivostok. And there's also Power of Siberia 2 and possibly even 3 coming up over the next few years coming up. I think that there's still lots of details yet to be agreed, but it will happen eventually. So there's a lot more trade going on between Russia and China. Russia is also picking up a lot of the agriculture stuff for China as well. Don't forget the parts of Ukraine that Russia is taking has got black soil. So there's a lot of agriculture in Donetsk and Luhansk, and lots of wheat and lots of black soil, great for agriculture. So China is obviously going to be the main benefactor because all of that stuff is not really going to Europe. It's going to go to China and also the global south as well. So that's going to increase over the next few years. I think it's going to go up to like 400 billion by maybe 2025. But we'll see. I think it's a very good possibility because there's a less and less trade that's happening between China and EU and United States because these countries are trying to decouple from China. So obviously there's less trade going on. And China's doing the same. China's also trying to decouple from EU and United States as well. So you can see China's buying more grain from other countries like South Africa. They're also buying it from Argentina, more from Brazil as well. And a lot of other countries, they are diversifying their imports and exports, and also more coming from Russia as well. And recently they've made up with Australia. So Australian Prime Minister went to China to kind of fix relations, and now China's thinking of buying wheat and barley from Australia as well. So things are looking good. They are, diversifying the same way EU is diversifying from China, and China is doing the same thing. But the difference is, you know, if you diversify away from China, you are basically losing the biggest market. China right now is the biggest market in the world with 1.4 billion people, but a middle class of around 500 million, and you cannot beat that. Even United States doesn't have that much middle class. I think the United States, the middle class is about 80 million or something. Rest of them are actually in poverty. People are basically running from paycheck to paycheck in the United States, heavily in debt. But there's only, I would probably say, 50 to 80 million only middle class who are actually, doing well enough. Obviously, most of the wealth in the United States is only held by 1% of the people, which are basically taking up all the money. That's what you call capitalism. But most of the people in America are actually in poverty. They're just living paycheck to paycheck, and they don't really have much savings left. So things are not looking good. But China, with 500 million middle class, is a huge market we're talking about, and that market's growing faster because more and more people are coming out of poverty in China. Every year, more and more people are coming out of poverty, and eventually these people will get into the middle class bracket, and that market is just going to grow and grow. So if the EU and America decides to leave China's market and diversify, they're just shooting their own foot. They're just shooting themselves, and it's just not going to work. And if China decides to diversify away from EU and America, that's bad news as well, because that means that EU and America will lose more money. Because if you lose China as a customer, who else are you going to replace China with? Are you going to replace it with India? Because India doesn't really have that many middle class either. India's probably got around, I think, maybe 20, 30 million in terms of middle class. It really does not have much middle class. Most of the people in India are working in agriculture or in poverty, basically. So India is still up and coming. And if you go to India, it's still very much like a third world country. It's still not developed yet, apart from maybe one or two cities, but the rest of India is still very undeveloped. India's got a long way to go. So it's not really a market that you can replace when you want to replace China. It's just suicide, if you ask me. Let's move on. So I want to kind of, hey guys, 120, hey, not bad, not bad. Not bad. Thank you for joining. I'm going to show you this interview, and I just want to show you how bad these British interviewers are. They are absolutely psychotic. I would say absolutely psychotic. So I want to kind of show you this. So listen to this.
Who do you think a ceasefire would benefit? Because the concern is, by those who are not calling for a ceasefire, including Keir Starmer and the Prime Minister of the Conservative government, is that actually a ceasefire only benefits Hamas, who can rearm, reorganize themselves, and then can continue their attacks on the Israeli civilian people. Do you think that actually a ceasefire will in any way benefit the ordinary people of Gaza, ordinary civilians, including children?
Well, they're being massacred on a daily basis, Julia, at the moment. So, of course, a ceasefire would be beneficial to the people living in Gaza, which is, let's remember, is a concentration camp.
It's not a concentration camp.
Well, I'm sorry,
How
Julia.
dare you use that phrase? How dare you?
Well, I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. Are Palestinians working gas chambers in Gaza?
Julia, what is the definition of a concentration camp?
I'm just so appalled.
People are penned in. They
You
are not
seem
allowed
like
to
a
leave.
normal person.
Nobody is allowed
You
to
seem
go
like a normal person with
Gaza.
normal values.
They have a fence around them.
And
They
yet
are
you
oppressed. They are regularly bombarded by the Israeli regime. What an absolute outrage. And how you can defend a regime which is behaving worse than Nazis, actually, in some respects.
Worse than Nazis. There we go.
Yes,
worse
absolutely.
Than Nazis.
Because what we are seeing,
Chris,
thousands of children have been murdered by this Israeli regime.
Why don't we just save time? Why don't you just come on this show and just shout, I hate Jewish people, and save everyone time?
What do you say about the Jewish people then that have joined the rallies and marches in support of a ceasefire, in support of the Palestinian people? What do you say about them, Julia? Because there are thousands of Jews who are utterly opposed.
There are thousands, tens of thousands of Jews in this country who are terrified about what is happening because of people like you who are basically saying you support terrorist organizations that don't think that Israel or the Jewish people have a right to exist.
The terrorist organization is the Israeli regime. They are the terrorists.
They're a democratically elected government. They're a democratically elected government. They are not a prescribed terrorist organization, which Hamas is.
Because the Palestinians living in Israel have not got a vote. So don't give me that nonsense about.
There are plenty of Arabs. No, if you're not an Israeli national, and there are plenty of Arab Israelis who are, you do have a vote in Israel.
Well, I'm sorry, Julia. You need to actually look that there are tens of thousands, if not millions, of Palestinians living in the area outside of Gaza, who do not have a vote. And indeed, it's an absolutely apartheid regime. There's no doubt about that.
It's an apartheid regime. It's not an apartheid regime. I mean, for goodness sake, in what
Israel
way is not an apartheid regime? There is nothing you can...
Hold on a minute.
Who do you...
Did you see that, guys? Did you see how this female reporter is? She is absolutely bonkers. She's an absolute psycho. She's got no humanity. She thinks Palestinians are animals. She's completely in denial. Israel can do no wrong for her, and she's a total bimbo, I would say, airhead, complete airhead. And there is no point talking to people like that in interviews because there's nothing you can say to them. They are just completely blind and dumb, and there's no persuading them. Whether even if you show pictures of dead babies in front of their face, they will not change their mind. And this is the kind of people we deal with in the West and in UK. And this is why I'm embarrassed for women like that in UK. And there are a lot of them because I meet them on a daily basis. Like I don't go like chatting them up or anything like that. I mean, like, you know, from work or in the gym or in the other activities. You know, day to day you meet friends and they introduce you to other people and you talk about what's happening around the world, and it's just shocking how these people think. And it's not just this woman. Like I said, there's many people like this in UK think like her. Absolutely brainwashed guys. Really sad state. Let's move on. Oh yeah, this picture was very sad. You can see 4 kids there, and you can see somebody buried underneath, and these kids are just watching. So you can imagine these kids growing up, right? And the ones that survive, they're going to have extreme trauma from all of these bombs and killings of dead bodies they've seen. Extreme trauma, and I think no kid should go through this kind of stuff. And even the ones that survive, and you know, it's going to be a very, very sad life for them because there is no way getting away from this trauma. No way, because trauma stays with you for life. It doesn't disappear. And I know because I've got a friend that worked in the army, and he was in the Iraq War, and he went to my school actually, so I knew him for a long time. So he decided to go to the army, and I didn't see him for maybe like 10 years or something. So he obviously served in Iraq. and he spent most of his time in Iraq and stuff. So he came back. He left the army, and he decided to reach out to me, and he just called me up and meet up. So I met up with him, and yeah, we decided to go for a few like drinks and coffee and some dinner. We started building our friendship again because I haven't seen. So he was telling me about what's happened in Iraq and stuff. So there was one day we were walking along the street, and it was just it was basically fireworks night. You know those fireworks going off in this was like a few weeks ago, November, Guy Fawkes night in UK. We have fireworks going on and stuff. So the fireworks came on, and he basically ran for his life, went inside a shop, and went under the table and was hiding under the table. And so I was like, what's wrong with him? I thought he's gone mad or something. It's only fireworks, right? Because I've never seen anyone scared of fireworks before, and obviously he's a grown adult and stuff. So I thought he was a bit strange. So I went and like spoke. I went to get him, and I was trying to talk to him, but he was completely in another world. You can see from his eyes he was not. He was not in this world. He was in a different world, and he couldn't recognize me, and he couldn't. I was talking to him, he couldn't recognize me. He didn't understand what I was saying, and I think he was having some sort of panic attack, or I think he had PTSD or something, and he was just having some panic attack, and he just disappeared from reality. And yeah, so after like maybe 20 minutes or something, he came back, and he didn't realize what he was doing, and he kind of said, "Oh yeah, I do have PTSD, and whenever I hear loud noises, I can't help it. But I just think that there's bombs coming or something. Somebody's trying to kill me." So you can see these. Obviously he's had trauma when he was in war, and he was an adult. So you can imagine what these kids are going to have when they grow up. These trauma experiences never disappear. They always stay in your brain. They're going to have extreme PTSD, and I feel sorry for these kids. But yeah, it's a real shame. Real shame what's happening to them. So I'm just going to catch up with you guys. How you doing, by the way? 120. If you guys got any questions for me, let me know. And remember to put Q in front of the question, and happy to answer it. And if there's no questions, don't worry, I'll continue with the stuff that's happening. I'm just going to continue for maybe another half an hour or so, then I'm going to call it quits. So let's move on. Let's see what other stories there are. So Israel is trying to prosecute people watching social media content. So basically, they haven't been able to control what's out on social media, because obviously what Israel is trying to do, they've blocked all internet access in Gaza. They've blocked electricity, so people can't charge their phones. And if you can't charge your phones, you can't video what's happening. So they're obviously trying to do genocide, and they're trying to block all of that from coming out. And obviously on Twitter and many other platforms is pictures of dead babies and videos of dead babies and women and children, and they can't seem to control it. So now what they're trying to do is put some sort of legislation to show that it's illegal to watch something like that. So basically, it's very similar to I would say porn, but the kind of extreme porn you're not allowed to look at. And I'm not going to say the words because obviously it's quite it's quite disgusting and stuff, but there's a lot of like extreme stuff that you're not allowed to see, is illegal to watch. And I'm talking about maybe stuff with animals or stuff with I'm not going to say the word, but I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. So it's obviously illegal to kind of watch that kind of content, and if you get caught, you get you can go to prison and stuff. So they want to do something very similar. So if you watch anything with like dead babies or with women and kids being killed, they're gonna basically put you in prison because you're not allowed to watch content like that. So it's a kind of like a control, kind of like control. But I don't think it's going to work, guys, because let's be honest, right? They cannot control stuff like that because how many people? I just have to go on my Twitter or on Instagram, and there's millions of people posting this stuff out there, millions, and I'm just, you just have to kind of go through the feed, and you're going to see something. And what they're going to do? Prosecute millions of people? Like, it's impossible, right? What are they going to do? Put millions of people in jail overnight? It's not going to happen. This kind of stuff you cannot control. Social media, once it's out there, it's out there. You just cannot control it. And so good luck to that if they think they can like get away with it. And which I don't think they will, because Elon Musk is not going to allow it. Plus, social media such as TikTok and stuff, they're not going to listen to the Israelis. Facebook might, Instagram might, but Twitter's another thing, TikTok's another thing. Good luck if they think they can persuade them, but it's not going to happen anyway. So Netanyahu has rejected ceasefire. Basically, he said he will do a ceasefire for 3 days if Palestinians release all the prisoners. And this is like a really bad deal, guys. Listen to this. So Netanyahu wants Palestinians to release all the hostages, and Netanyahu in return will give a ceasefire for 3 days. So after 3 days, they're going to continue the bombing. So can you see how stupid that is? So imagine you have a family, right? And a robber comes in. And he's got like a gun and stuff. And he says to you, like, give me all your money, and I'm not gonna shoot you or your family for 3 minutes. So you think, oh, hang on a second. If I give you the money, you're not gonna shoot us for 3 minutes, but after 3 minutes, you're gonna shoot us. So what's the point of giving you the money? Because we're going to die anyway, right? So this is exactly what Netanyahu is proposing. These Palestinians are going to die anyway. So give us the hostages. We're still going to kill you, but you just give us the hostages for free. That's what he's trying to say. So he must think the Palestinians are absolutely stupid, giving these ridiculous demands. I mean, this guy he's just evil, absolute evil. So let's move on. So another story about this meeting between India and Blinken. So Blinken's basically asking India to counter China in the South China Sea. They want an Indian fleet to go and help Philippines and stuff like that, and they want India to get involved in the South China Sea clashes with Philippines and stuff like that. And guess what? India did agree to it. So the Indians going to send a little dinghy boat to South China Sea to help the Philippines, and absolutely stupid, guys. Absolutely stupid. So imagine this: if India suddenly starts a war with China, what do you think China's going to do? China's not going to sit back and take it. They'll probably take that disputed area that India has with China, the Arunash, I think it's Arunash Pradesh or something it's called, but obviously it's southern Tibet to China, and so any like clashes with India, China's first thing they're going to do is take back that land that's disputed. Second thing they will do is probably take care of the chicken's neck. Because without showing you the map, guys, India is basically shaped like a chicken, and the head of the chicken is in the northern part of India, and the head of the chicken is basically in between Nepal, Bhutan, China, and Bangladesh. So there's a little piece of land, and whoever can take that piece of land will mean that India gets separated in two parts. And China is in a very good position to take that piece of land. And if China decides to take it one day, India will be split in two. You'll have East India and West India, and there is no way that India will be able to take that back, that land, if China takes it, because China is way more powerful than India, and there is no way they will be able to take that land. So that what will happen is basically East India and you have West India, and in East India, you have all these separatists. You have like Manipur and Nagaland and all these other kind of tribes and villages and people who are completely against India's Hindu rule, because these people, they are like they are, some of them are Hindu, but a lot of them are still Buddhists. They obviously come from the Tibetan region, and also there's a lot of Muslims there as well, who are kind of I think they're called Rohingya or something, and so they will take that opportunity to take most of that land away from India, and India will be split in two. And so this is going to be really, really bad news if India gets involved, and I think it's a really bad news if they do, because if India gets involved with China, guess what? Pakistan's going to be getting involved as well, because the first thing Pakistan's going to do is take back Kashmir, and India's going to be in major trouble. And the United States is not going to come to the aid of India, because first of all, the United States has got enough in its plate. Secondly, there's no defense treaty with India. There's no like NATO defense treaty, or America hasn't signed any defense treaties with India. So there's no obligation for the United States to join India. But what they can do is maybe give India weapons like they do to Ukraine, and maybe get lots of Indians killed, because that's what they're good at doing. They'll probably use India to attack China and try and see if they can weaken China, and they'll probably use India to give them lots of weapons and try and kill as many Indians as they can, like they've done to Ukraine. And that's probably what's going to happen. But if Indians are smart, they can see that. But I just don't think Indians are that smart. I mean, you can see what they're doing right now, and you can pretty much predict what's going to happen in the future. And yeah, it doesn't seem very good diplomacy by Indians by the looks of it. And yeah, I just don't see anything good coming out of this, guys. Anything good? But we'll see. We'll see what happens in the future, anyway. So I just want to go back. So let me see what you guys think. Oh, thanks for the sticker, Thomas. Appreciate it. Just checking if you guys got any questions for me. Yes, just use a Q for question, because I get so many messages on the screen. I can't read them all. I can see like anyone that's got a question there. So you got a question here. PB World, didn't Suela want to ban the Pales flag? What's she gonna do? Arrest half of UK? Yeah, exactly. Suella Benjamin, the woman that looks like a mongoose. I don't know if you've seen her face. She looks like a mongoose. She's a really weird looking politician. So she wanted to ban the Palestinian flags, and she wanted to ban the protests from this Saturday. And this Saturday is a very important day. It's basically going to be Armistice Day, and obviously Armistice is when British won against the Nazis and stuff, and they celebrate Armistice Day because of it. And so they do not, basically they do not want the Palestinians to protest during this important day for the Brits. But she tried to stop it and she couldn't, and she even went as far as threatening the police, and it didn't work. And also yeah, she tried to ban the flag and stuff like that. They can't arrest half of UK, because there's going to be at least 1 million people marching, so they're not going to arrest everyone. And there were calls for her to quit, but she didn't quit, because her and Sunak are like soulmates, right? Them two are like bosom buddies. He will never sack her. You know, she's to him what Priti Patel was to Boris Johnson. Them two are like inseparable. I wouldn't be surprised if they are like, they go home together and maybe having an affair or something, because them two, I wouldn't put it past them. But these two, like, yeah, I just think that, you know, she needs to go. She's an absolute disaster for the UK. I mean, everybody is, to be honest. Every single politician is an absolute disaster for the UK. They're all supporting Israel, but she is like an evil woman. She is an absolute evil woman. She's even worse than Priti Patel. I mean, if you look at Suella Braverman, you know, she's an actual she's a product of immigrants, right? Because you can tell by her skin, her parents are not fully white. She's a product, and she's going around basically denying her roots. She's obviously changed her name to some, you know, to a white name. She's denying her roots. She's basically trying to ban all immigrants coming to the UK who are coloured. She's completely against all immigrants in UK, all the Muslims and stuff. She is one woman who's like completely like forgotten about her roots and just gone to war with every single brown person in the UK. And that's what it seems like. She's so racist, and she's the worst form of racist because she is the, you know, her parents are the same color as most of these people that she's trying to attack. And yeah, it's just ridiculous, guys. Anyway, let's move on with the stories. And yeah, this is the same in the BBC as well. You can see some of these, the questioning.
Let's return now to Israel's war on Hamas. Joining me now is Nora Erekat, a human rights attorney and associate professor at Rutgers University in New Brunswick. She's served as legal counsel to the US House of Representatives and as a legal advocate for Palestinian refugee rights at the United States. Thanks very much for joining us. We've just seen Antony Blinken, US Secretary of State, finish his second trip to the region. Huge diplomatic efforts going on at the moment. In terms of the influence of US in all of this and what he's been able to achieve, how do you think he's going? And we heard from Mark Lowen just now talking about how Netanyahu is now considering what he called little tactical pauses to allow aid in. Do you think that would have been down to Antony Blinken?
I think that it's universally agreed that there is a consensus that the Secretary Blinken's recent visit to the region is a blunderous failure. All the United States has done has given a green light to Israel, a nuclear power, the only nuclear power in the Middle East, to pummel a besieged population of 2.2 million Palestinians. We are on day 32, where over 10,000 Palestinians have been killed, 16 hospitals have been destroyed, where Israel recently even shot, after denying fuel to the hospitals, shot the solar panels on the Al-Auda hospital, has not achieved any of its military objectives. Your last guest was saying that this is the beginning of war. This is not a war, nor is it a war against Hamas. This is a genocidal campaign targeting the Palestinian people, attacking the conditions of life with the intent to diminish their ability to survive. This is a violation of the Genocide Convention. Secretary Blinken has demonstrated a failure in leadership, and we are now seeing that the United States is about to shift precisely because the United Nations has a critical role to play under its chapters. The United Nations has a critical in order to undermine the will of the international community to impose an immediate ceasefire. 2008 and 2012. In fact, they're being used as human shields in Israel to achieve its, like slavery is not accepted.
Hamas waged a war on them, and they are responding, and this is them showing their right to protect themselves and try to bring back security to their country. And they blame Hamas for what is going on in terms of
No country has ever admitted to committing genocide. The US has still not admitted that it committed genocide against the indigenous peoples on the lands where it established its sovereignty. To sit here and tell us what Israel is saying, despite what the facts demonstrate, the facts are clear. There is no clear target. What Israel has said is that they are willing to destroy the entirety of the population in the Gaza Strip, 2.2 million Palestinians, children, families, schools, in order to obliterate Hamas, which
Israel would argue that
achieved.
it is telling people to leave. It's giving them warnings of bombardments. It's telling people to leave the areas before they attack them.
Where do people leave? Ma'am, where do people leave? Please. We are on day 32. News agencies need to start to be more critical of an ongoing genocidal campaign right before our eyes. They are attacking hospitals, schools.
Well, they are saying that Hamas is hiding underneath those hospitals and using its people.
Have you verified that? Has anyone verified that?
I'm just telling you what Israel would argue against what you're saying. They are saying that Hamas is using hospitals, and that's why they are targeting those areas, because they are targeting Hamas fighters. If we move on then to United Nations, because obviously you've got experience within the United.
That's enough, guys. You see, like, this is a woman from BBC and completely fed up of British media. These people are complete airheads, and she's obviously like this blonde bimbo. She literally has no clue. She's given orders by her editor, basically saying, "Oh, be pro-Israel in all your interviews." Completely biased, towards Israel, completely ignorant to what's really happening in Palestine. And she says things with a straight face, with no sympathy to what's happening in Palestine. She's always like trying to protect Israel. So she's saying, "Oh, Israel says this, Israel says that, Israel says there's a Hamas there, Israel says this." She says it with a complete straight face. She's got no humanity. And it's crazy. And these are women. These are women who probably have kids at home. And if you're a woman and you've got kids and you see other kids dying, and I mean, as a man, if it makes me feel sad to see anything like that, but as a woman, it probably will hit you more because women are more emotional, right? But there's so many women out there who are just completely oblivious to what's happening in Palestine and just talk with a straight face and don't care about any babies dying and children dying. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. So let's move on. There's Ben Norton there. Oh, this is quite an important story. Western automakers are paying for minority stakes in Chinese EV companies to gain access to their technology. So there seems to be a growing shift by Western companies basically buying up shares in Chinese companies because they are losing the race in the EV battle. Companies like Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes, they are buying huge shares in Chinese EV companies and even outsourcing lots of the technology to Chinese companies, like buying the batteries, buying the software. The software that runs on Volkswagen cars is basically all done in China, and a lot of other technologies as well. So it's a major shift, basically. Used to be the other way around before. 50 years ago, China didn't really have a car industry. They used to buy all their cars from abroad. But now, manufacturing companies from all over the world are now queuing up to get shares in Chinese EV companies. And this is bad news for countries like Germany and European companies as well, French companies. German companies probably going to be hit the worst, followed by Japanese, because German companies have been selling to China for 10, 20 years now. They've been making huge profits in China. Same with same with the Japanese cars and maybe French cars as well, Korean cars as well. But the only problem is all of these cars have been gas-powered cars, obviously internal combustion engines. So they've been making huge amounts of money in China selling these gas cars. However, from this December, and I believe around this December, end of December, or beginning of January, China is going to implement a rule, meaning they're going to ban any new cars, new cars. They cannot sell them, which are petrol cars or gas cars in China. So they're going to ban them, all the new ones, not the second-hand ones. So this will mean that companies like Volkswagen, Japan, Korea, French cars, overnight then they're going to be banned. They can't be sold in China. So these cars will have to be shipped out to another country or just dumped, basically. This rule was supposed to take place this year around June or July, I believe, but China extended it by 6 months because there was a lot of car showrooms that were panicking. They said that they're gonna, run out of business if they cannot sell these cars. So China extended it for 6 months. So this extension is going to come until December, and they're not going to extend it even any longer. So this means that major car companies are going to start making huge losses. They can't sell to the Chinese market anymore because if you're a company and you want to sell gas cars to China, that market is not going to be there because you cannot sell cars anymore. They're going to be banned, and only gas cars are going to be second-hand cars in China. But these are going to be phased out slowly because more and more people are now buying EV cars. I believe last month over 1 million EV cars were sold in China, and this is going up faster because as these companies are becoming larger, like BYD, new factories are coming online, and other car companies have got new factories coming online as well. So this production is going to go up. More and more of these cars are going to be exported around the world as well, and Chinese car companies are just going to rule. This is bad news for Japan and Germany because guess what? Germany's number one export is cars, and guess what? Japanese number one export is cars. So if they lose the Chinese market, they are pretty much screwed. Absolutely screwed because Chinese market brings them the biggest revenue, and you will see German economy start shooting down. It's already shooting down as it is, but it's going to shoot down even more. Japanese economy is pretty much dead, but it's going to be shooting. That economy is going to be shooting down as well. Korean economy is going to be shooting down because Korean cars were selling good in China at one point, but now people don't buy Korean cars anymore. And so this is going to be really bad news for Germany, Japan, and Korea because these three countries, we've got very huge manufacturing in terms of cars, and suddenly overnight is going to lose business by end of this year. Give me a second, guys. I've got my my screensaver came on suddenly. It comes on if I don't touch my screen every 10 minutes. Okay, I'm back online. So yeah, when my screensaver comes on, I lose my screen. So let me put it back on again. There you go. So yeah, I was just talking about the cars, how the German car industry is about to collapse. Same with Japan and Korea, and it could happen this year from January. I mean, sorry, by December. But it's going to take a few months to finally hit the market, and you're going to see shares of Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes start shooting down, Toyota, and other like Japanese cars. Their stock prices are going to start shooting down overnight. We're talking about. So 2024 is going to be a massive year for car companies, and it's probably going to be the year when the world economy is going to really crash, because when you have all these car companies suddenly losing their values all over the world, it's going to cause a huge issue for the economy, and I can foresee a major crash happening maybe next year because of it. But we'll see. We'll see. So we've seen enough explosions, guys. But this explosion is actually in Iraq. This is the US military base in Iraq. And you can see that it's been attacked by Iraqi militias. And all this stuff is happening in the Middle East. The only people that's actually in danger right now in the Middle East are American troops, because they got bases in Iraq, they got bases in Syria, and you can see these bases are being attacked almost on a daily basis. And there's going to come a point when America will have to pull out, because the cost of keeping troops there and the defending them and the danger to them being there as well, it's just that danger is getting larger and larger and larger. So I think United States will need to move these troops out sooner rather than later. So there's Joe Biden, who says there's not going to be a ceasefire, and this guy's supposed to be the leader of the free world. He doesn't give a crap about Palestinians. Yeah, he doesn't even know where he's going or who he's talking to. You can see he's deteriorated, right? I mean, when he first became president, he was a bumbling fool. He's falling all over the place. But in these 3 years, you can see he's really deteriorated a lot. Now he's become almost senile. He doesn't know who he's talking to. He doesn't know where he's going. He doesn't even know what he's saying. He's just walking senile old man. And this guy is supposed to be ruling the leader. He's supposed to be the leader of the free world. Absolute joke. Oh, there's a nice video there of this clever bird basically getting water out. He's putting stones in the jar and he's getting water out, which I thought was really clever. Oh yeah, so this is the bit I was going to talk about. So these are the bodies, right, in Israel, and these are the bodies they recovered in Israel. They said that Hamas did these bodies, but recently lots of videos came out that you can see. These videos are videos of the Apache helicopters basically shooting anything that moves. So you can see them blowing up cars, they're killing people, and these are civilians. These are not terrorists, these are not Hamas, these are Israeli civilians, or these were the people that went to the concert. And you can see the reason people are burnt in cars is because these helicopters have been blowing them up. And this damage is, you can see these guys burnt inside the car. This damage is basically the same as the helicopter blowing these cars up with missiles, which goes to show that probably most of the people that were killed in October 7th were basically killed by the IDF or killed by the Israelis, because from these images they probably couldn't tell who was Hamas and who was innocent civilians. So they basically just shot and killed anything that moved, and I think that's why they had so many deaths in that day, October 7th. And there's another image of hundreds of cars being burnt, and I saw that image as well. I don't know if I saved it, but there's definitely an image of hundreds of cars being burnt, and they all look like these cars being burnt from a missile strike from a helicopter, and definitely not Hamas, because when you look at the images, when Hamas went in, they went in with machine guns and things like that, and they were shooting. They were going into compounds, if you remember. They had videos and stuff. They didn't have heavy weapons or missiles and stuff. So it goes to show that maybe the Israelis actually panicked on the day and they killed most of their own people with helicopters and stuff. And obviously this story is only starting to come out. So, but a lot of the Western papers are not picking it up, because you know why? Because it doesn't follow the narrative. The narrative is that Hamas did those killings, and this is why Israelis are attacking Hamas and trying to destroy them. So if that news comes out that Israelis did most of the killing that day, then obviously that's not really good news for Israel, and the world will turn against them even more. Anyway, let's move on. So I'm going to talk for another maybe 10 minutes, guys, and I'm going to go off. If you've got any questions, let me know. Let me see if there's any more further questions. Just put Q in front of it, and I'll try and answer it. Okay, I can't see any other questions, so I'm just going to talk a few more stories, and then I'll go off. I wanted to talk about this particular story, actually. Yeah, this particular story. Oh, hang on a second. Let me just get like. Yeah, I wanted to talk about this. The story about Xi Jinping going to United States and meeting Biden. I just think it's a bad idea, guys, because end of the day, Biden called President Xi a dictator more than once. He was making fun out of him, and there's obviously nothing's going to come out of this meeting that's going to be any beneficial to China. Nothing. You know, how many meetings had Biden had with President Xi? And each time he's just embarrassed Xi afterwards when he went back to the United States, started calling him names or started putting sanctions on China. Nothing's going to change. You know, them two meeting doesn't mean US will start dropping sanctions or they're going to stop messing around with Taiwan. That stuff is still going to happen. I think that President Xi is making a mistake meeting him. I think he should have just stuck to his guns, because end of the day, Biden called him a dictator. So obviously, you know, yeah, if somebody called me a dictator, I wouldn't even give them the time of the day. You know, it's not worth it. I mean, yeah, I just think it's a really bad idea. I think this meeting is just for show. It's basically going to be for the reporters and basically going to be for Biden saying, yeah, look, I met President Xi. He came all the way to America to meet me. I didn't go to China to meet him. He came to me. That means the Chinese leader is weak. I'm strong. They've come to beg America for stuff. They're going to come up with all sorts of ridiculous storylines. Watch, you know, when they meet together, you can see Wall Street Journal and all these other stories saying, "Oh, President Xi has come to United States to beg to America to release the sanctions and stuff and get some deals from America. China's having economic issues, so that's why they come all the way to America to beg for money." They're going to say all these stuff, guys. Watch, you know, they're going to twist this meeting completely. And but the real reason President Xi is actually going there is for a business meeting in San Francisco, and he's meeting a lot of business leaders. And obviously, you know, China does business with a lot of American companies, and that's the main reason. And because he's going to America, and he's been pressed by Biden administration to meet Biden and stuff like that. And I think maybe he couldn't say no. Maybe, you know, he's being cornered or something and saying, you got to meet President Biden or blah, blah, blah. You come all this way. And so maybe he's just being cornered to meet him. But I think he should have just refused, and maybe even refused to go to America, because going to America is a big risk, guys, because don't forget what happened to Meng Wanzhou, right, from Huawei, and the way she got stopped in Canada. And I'm not saying the same thing will happen to President Xi, because I don't think America will have the guts to do that. Because if they do that, then we're talking about war here, you know. And I don't think America will risk it. But yeah, it could happen. I'm just saying there might be like a small possibility, maybe even 1%. Something could happen. So you need to. I think President Xi needs to be careful going to America or any of its friendly countries like UK, Canada, any of the Five Eyes. I think President Xi should avoid those countries until they start becoming more friendly towards him. Because right now things are not friendly between America and China. So him going there is a big risk. So I hope he knows what he's doing. I still think he should have done it through video call or something. It's much safer. There's no reason for him to be there personally. But that's just me. Hopefully nothing happens or things don't escalate. But we've seen it all before. Even if things don't escalate, you're going to see all these news articles lying about China, and then so you're going to see more sanctions on China. This always happens, like on the day or then the day after, you'll see sanctions. Then Biden the next day will be arrogant and say, "Oh yeah, I met President Xi, that dictator," or he'll say something stupid. It happens all the time. So yeah, I just don't think it's a good idea. But yeah, but it's not my decision at the end of the day. So it's obviously China's made that decision. Anyway, let's move on. So let me know what you guys do. You think it's a good idea? Let me know on the screen if you think it's a good idea. President Xi meeting Biden. I've given you my thoughts, but if you guys agree with me, great. But if you don't, give me some reasons. Okay, let's carry on. I've got like 5 more minutes. So this is quite nice. China helping Bangladesh with massive wind farms. Bangladesh needs a lot of clean energy because they are still a developing country and they've got a lot of wind as well. So I think it's really great that China's helping Bangladesh on the wind stuff. Let's see if there's any other big stories. Oh yeah, this is a quite good story here. So this is an MQ-9 drone, and this got shot down over Yemen. And Yemen, I think the Americans were absolutely surprised that Yemen has this kind of weapons to shoot down a drone. And these drones are really expensive. We're talking about $32 million for these drones. Plus, if Yemen gets hold of some of the, I don't know, some technology, maybe it's part of the engine is intact. I mean, looking at the explosion, maybe not, but you never know. Maybe even they get a small part and they can reverse engineer it. But yeah, I think Americans are pretty much surprised that they got their drone shot down, and yeah, $32 million gone. And this is going to be a very expensive war not just for Israel, but also for United States. Because at the end of the day, right? Just think about it. I mean, all these Hamas fighters were fighting with homemade rocket launchers. Maybe it's gonna cost them $300 to make a homemade rocket launcher. And these guys are taking out tanks worth millions. I mean, these Merkava 4 tanks, even each of them cost like 3 million each. And these Hamas members are taking out the $300 rocket launchers, taking out $3 million tanks. And the war, end of the day, war is all about economy. Like who can destroy each other more, like, but do it cheaply. Like this is what Russia's been doing to Ukraine. They've been using these Iranian drones, which are now Russian drones, and taking out these really expensive, armored vehicles, tanks, and anti-aircraft guns and stuff. So they're using like these drones, which cost a couple of $1,000s, and taking out equipment worth millions. So in terms of economy, I mean, you are winning if you are taking out something worth millions, and you only lost like $300 or $500 or $1,000, then you are winning the war economically, and this cannot be sustained in the long term. When one country is losing millions worth of dollars worth of equipment, while the other country is losing just a couple of thousand. So in terms of economy, it doesn't make any sense, right? The biggest losers of this war is obviously the civilians, by the looks of it. All the women and children seem to be the ones that are being killed. But I don't really see many Hamas members being killed. Maybe they are being killed, but not enough. And the thing is, right, if you're a Palestinian father or a son and you watched your family being killed by Israel, what are you going to do? You're obviously going to take up arms, right, for revenge. And this is what's happening, right? This is, when you take down a whole family, somebody somewhere is going to be angered by that, and they're going to take up arms and they're going to join Hamas. And this is going to be a never-ending cycle. Hamas is always going to be there. And I think this is why Israel is trying to take down the whole population, because some of the statements that Israel made, that they cannot differentiate Hamas, whether it's part of the population or actual members itself. But yeah, these Hamas guys, they've watched their whole families get burnt and destroyed, so they're going to have nothing to lose, right? They're going to pick up arms. They're not going to be afraid of death, and they're going to go for it. But these Israeli soldiers, on the other hand, they have a life of luxury. They living in luxury in Israel. They're going to parties. They're going in restaurants and having good meals, and being all woke and stuff, dancing for TikTok videos. These Israelis are going to be scared to die, because if you're like, if you're used to the good life and you're used to like freedom and TikTok videos and living the Western life, then you are going to be more afraid to die compared to a Hamas member who's just lost his family, and they're out for revenge. They're not scared of death. So can you see the difference here? Yeah, one army is very much technological, advanced, like Israel is, but the other army, Hamas, they are fearless, and even if they lose, they will cause a lot of damage, not just to Israel, but to United States. I mean, United States already lost 30 million in that drone, and this is only the beginning. But it must cost them a lot. They have 3 aircraft carriers there. They gotta obviously pay for petrol and pay for the service members that's stationed in those waters. So this is going to be a very, very expensive war for Israel and for United States. I mean, there's figures coming out that Israel has lost at least 16 billion from this war already, and it's been like a few weeks. Sorry, guys, my things froze again. I'm just gonna add. That's it. So yeah, Israel has lost around 16 billion in a number of weeks, but they've already got like I think they got some aid from United States for another 14 billion as well, to cover that. And United States will always give money to Israel because that is their little baby. They'll rather forget about Ukraine, and give their money to Israel, because Israel, for them, Israel is like number one priority. They cannot let Israel fall, because that is their gateway to the Middle East. And without Israel, they would pretty much lose the rest of the Middle East. And they don't want that. And let me see if there's any other stories. Oh yeah, this guy, Vivek, he came on yesterday. He was talking to Nikki Haley. He was doing some sort of campaign drive with Nikki Haley and I think Ron DeSantis. And I thought he did quite well. Even though I don't like the guy, he came out with some good points. And I think he stood up very well against Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. And but I still don't like the guy. I still think he's a bit of an idiot. Yeah, I don't support anybody kind of running for president, to be honest. Even Trump looks a bit scary. I think if Trump comes to power, first thing he's going to do is start war against the Middle East, because that's what he said. He said he's going to start war with Iran. Then he's going to start a war with any other like countries that are fighting with Israel. That means Lebanon and Syria and crazy. So if Trump comes on, it's going to be more bad news. The other guy who's supposed to be talking peace, that Kennedy guy, even he's like a secret neocon. He's talking about war with Israel, with the Middle East, and Israel is the #1 priority and stuff. So all of these people are showing their ugly heads. Even Tulsi, I think Tulsi, her name is, she was a very anti-war person, and now she's like pro-war with, she's supporting Israel. She's pro-war against Palestinians and the Muslims, and he's just full of like double standards and hypocrites in the United States. Same with the rest of the Western world, just full of hypocrites, guys. Can't trust any of them. Oh yeah, this is Benjamin Netanyahu in the beach with Modi. They're best of friends, and this is why India supports Israel. You can see that. And this is this one guy running around the football pitch with a Palestinian flag, which I thought was very brave. There seems to be a trend of these women writing their boyfriend's name on their heads as well. You can see, you can see how happy she is writing her boyfriend's name on her head, and this seems to be a trend going on. There's a lot of women that are doing that these days. My point is, why would you do something like that? That is so stupid. And while she's sitting in the chair getting her boyfriend's tattoo done, maybe her boyfriend's at home cheating on her. Who knows? But imagine if he cheats on her. What's she gonna do? She's not gonna be able to rub that off. Oh, these crazy women, man, absolutely crazy. Oh yeah, this is um Israeli sniper. He's supposed to be the best sniper Israel has got, and he got killed. So yeah, nothing more to say about that. I think that's it, guys. I think we've kind of reached all of our stories. I'll try and do another live stream again tomorrow or the weekend, and I'm a bit tired now talking. If you guys got any questions for me, let me know. Just put Q in front of it. Otherwise, we'll call it a day, and we'll go to we'll have another live chat tomorrow, or maybe even Sunday. We'll see. We'll see if I get the time. But thanks for the super chat, Bob. Is it Bbot? Yeah, appreciate that. Appreciate that. And yeah, so if you guys got any questions, let me know. If not, we'll call it a day. And I'll see you over the weekend, guys. Hope you enjoyed the show. So I hope you like my new format, by the way, going through Twitter stories instead. I think it's much easier. I can kind of pick and choose which story I want to talk about rather than having lots of different tabs of like news articles and stuff. And so yeah, kind of cool. And also I'm quite unique still. Obviously, I'm the only YouTuber who talks about what's happening in the Middle East and talk about China as well. It seems, that's quite a unique feature. And UK, don't forget UK. So quite a unique feature for me. And so yeah, I'm quite proud. But yeah, I'll see you guys, and take care of yourself, and have a nice evening, guys, and take care for now. See you. Bye.